entitled A Reformer, a Destroyer, and a Prayer. And we spent some time last Sunday in chapter 18 looking at 3 life lessons from the experience of King Hezekiah as the Lord was introducing him to us in the text and unfolding some of his history and some of his accomplishments and this particular event in the life and times of King Hezekiah. 3 life lessons we jotted down. You may have seen them on the board, whatever you put on the website. But the first was that faithfulness to God's purpose and plan opens the door to God's blessings and success. Be grateful. As we listened and learned how King Hezekiah had come in and was a faithful follower of the Lord, and as he came to power and to the role God had given him, began to move out all of that idol worship that was taking place among his people, and even to the point where they had begun to worship the pole that Moses had used with the serpent on it rather than the giver of the pole. And he weeded that out, and it said he was faithful and trusted in the Lord like none after him or none before him. And so we got a glimpse of his personality, character, and his faith walk. The second life lesson we spent time in that chapter was that God's opposition will be disrespectful, deceitful, and destructive. Be wise. And as we spent time with Hezekiah, we found him standing up against the Assyrian king, Sennacherib. He got a backlash on the fact that he says he will no longer pay tribute or no longer follow him. And as the backlash began to come to him, and the word came to him about basically challenging his faith, challenging the God of his faith, and attempting to place fear inside of his heart to get him off course on his journey, we got a clearer perspective on how the enemy operates. And it's not just the king's issues here. These are issues that impact us as we see how the enemy will try to operate and get you off track when you're following the Lord, particularly when you have established and pronounced that you have a relationship with him through Christ Jesus and walking in obedience to what God has placed in your heart and before you. Don't be surprised that the enemy will come at you, the text is letting us know. And don't be shocked, nor surprised that he will come at you with half-truths and messages designed to pull you in a direction God would not have you to go. You know, you'll hear some of that same rhetoric even as we spend time in chapter 19. And finally, as we close out that study from last Sunday, the third life lesson was when your circumstances seem overwhelming and out of control, lean prayerfully on God. He is your refuge. As we found King Hezekiah's response to the overwhelming and fear-mongering messages that have been sent to him by the rapture, by the king of Assyria, attempting to move his heart away from a position of faith into a position of fear, making him worry about whether or not he not only has the resources but the mindset to be able to withstand this barrage, this attack that could be coming. You can almost pull up a seat beside this king and feel some of the uncertainty attempting to creep in, and God beginning to hedge him around. So what does he do when he finds himself facing what appears to be out of control and uncontrollable circumstances and situation that's overwhelming in his life? He goes to the house of God and begins to pray. And he sends a messenger to the prophet Isaiah, seeking his counsel as well as his direction, what God would do. And so chapter 19 opens up by giving us some insight into what has happened. We'll close out with those first 2 verses there. So I want to focus your attention on beginning with verse 14 as we begin our study. The opening verses here give us some insight into what has taken place. King Hezekiah sent his representatives out to Isaiah. He basically said to them, I'm in a very difficult and troubling situation. Without saying to him, the history, the background storyline tells us that he attempted to acquiesce to what the Assyrian king was saying, only to find out that when you demonstrate signs of what look like signs of weakness to the enemy, he will assume that that's weakness and attempt to roll over top of you. And you're coming in trying to negotiate with him, and he's not interested in negotiating. He's interested in destruction. And so you're not going to talk your way through the evidence. Through the episodes, you're going to need to call on God to bring deliverance into your life. So he cries out he says, go to King Isaiah and let him know what our issues are, how troubling this situation is. And the prophet Isaiah says something powerful as he sends it back to him. And we read it in those verses together. He says that the Lord is going to prepare for you. Let me paraphrase this. That the Lord is going to prepare a victory. You don't need to worry about the rumor that you're hearing, the words that you're hearing from the Assyrian king who has blasphemed God Almighty, because God will absolutely be your hedge of protection. He's going to watch over you, keep you safe, and he'll not lay a hand on you. As a matter of fact, he'll get a rumor that will come and move him in a different direction. And when he moves in a different direction, he'll lose his life. He'll lose his own life in his homeland. So Isaiah is sending a word back to King Hezekiah to basically be encouraged and fear not. And then verse 14 opens up with this note. I'm going to the Amplified here now. It says, Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers, from the king of Assyrian king's messengers, and he read it. And he went up into the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed, O Lord, the God of Israel, who in symbol is enthroned above the cherubim or the ark of the temple, you are the God. You alone of all the kingdoms of the earth are the God. You have made the heavens and the earth. Lord, bow down your ear and hear. Lord, open your eyes and see. Hear the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to mock, reproach, insult, and to defy the living God. I'm in the Amplified. It is true, Lord, the Assyrian king has laid waste the nations and their lands, and have cast the gods of their peoples into the fire, for they were no gods, but the work of man's hands, wood and stone. So they could not have destroyed. They could and have destroyed them. Now therefore, O Lord our God, I beseech you, save us out of his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know and understand that you, O Lord, are God alone. Life lesson 1. From a reformer, a destroyer, and a prayer. Power-filled prayer should focus on God's person, presence, power, and promises, especially in our times of persecution. Power-filled prayer should focus on God's person, presence, power, and promises, especially in times of persecution. The king of Assyria has been pulled into a battle. As the scriptures tell us leading into this, there has come a front that has come against him, even as he's sending word to Hezekiah that you can't rely on your God. You can't depend on him. If he's anything like these other gods, take a look at all of the countries that I have destroyed. Their gods couldn't come and rescue them, couldn't save them in their time of need. And he tells Hezekiah, what makes you think that your God is any different? He told him in the earlier passages of chapter 18, you can see his pride welling up. He said, I'll give you 2,000 horses if you can find 2,000 men to mount on top of them. And once you mount, if you can find that, and even if you can find that and put the 2,000 men on top of the 2,000 horses that I give you for battle, that wouldn't even stand up against one of my regiments.
Come on, Rev.
So he says, why do you want to waste your time trying to go into battle? Why don't you just surrender and let us make you one of our countries, if you will, one of our territories,